This is Chris, the Idaho Painter here on Paint Live TV. If you ever wondered how we as professional painters get that awesome automobile finish on our trim, we're gonna show you. We're gonna walk you through the sponge caulking process using this wet sponge and caulking so you get beautiful corners and beautiful lines. And we're gonna also show you how we go about spackling and bondoing your nail heads so you'll never see them after we're done painting them. So stay tuned. So here we go, we're gonna start this process off. We always start doing our trim by doing the spackling and bondoing process first. So I'm gonna show Gabriel exactly how we go about doing this. And two things we use, one of them is Bondo. We also got, what do you got there, Gabriel? Got some spackling. Crawford's exterior, interior spackle. And so it's good to have a 5-in-1. Gabriel's got his 5-in-1 right here. We got this, we love the 2-edge 5-in-1. So that will open up your spackling really easy. But one of the things we're always looking for on nail heads, and this is very common in our industry, is the nail heads, Gabriel. You can feel them right here. They have, a lot of them will have it's like a protruding head, or what we call a volcano. So proper language for us is a volcano. So we want to scrape off all these little volcanoes right there. That makes our surface flat, because if we don't scrape those volcanoes off, if we spackle them and sand them, if you don't sand them completely flat, which is harder than scraping them, you're going to see this little raised bump. So you'll feel it and just scrape those off. So you can scrape them, and it's best to use, I like a flexible knife right here. So this flexible knife is going to be sharper and it's going to scrape them off a lot easier. Then he's going to scrape those off, and then the first process we do is this spackling process. We don't use Bondo first because Bondo shrinks a lot more than spackle. Bondo is going to be that ultra fine finish in the end that you'll never see it. Spackling will sand out a little bit and leave a little bit concave. So you feel those little volcanoes? You can feel them there. So you got those all scraped off. So we're going to start the process off. You want some good clean spackling, and this spackling is a little bit old, but just get some good clean spackling. Make sure it's nice, fresh, and soft, and then we'll just begin spackling our nail heads like that. And you're just going to put a little bit of spackle on there and just scrape it flat. The more spackle you leave, the more you're going to have to sand. So what you don't want to do is have a big old glob of spackle like that, because you're going to have to sand a lot more. This Crawford spackling sands really easy, but it's good to make it nice and flat. So you can go ahead there, Gabriel, and finish spackling those. So just use, I like a really flexible knife that just bends, and just make sure that knife edge is nice and sharp. The 5-in-1 tools, the edges are a little bit duller, and a lot of times we're using them for all kinds of things like scraping and stuff like that, so they don't have a nice flat edge. You want a really nice flat edge, so get yourself, and I like the 1.5" spackle knives. I don't like anything wider than that. So you'll spackle all your nail heads, and then that stuff is going to dry really, really fast. That Crawford spackle, by the time you work your way around the house, if you're only doing this one window, like this window right here that we're doing, you're going to have to give it a little bit of time to dry. And then we're just going to sand it with a sanding sponge, and we use a medium sanding sponge. And then we're going to do the bondoing process. So you want to scrape, we got nail heads on the inside there. So when you're dealing with those volcanoes, you'll run in, you forgot to scrape these right here, just make sure all your spackling is off your knife, because you don't want any of the chips and wood chips mixed in with your spackling. All right, so you got all that spackling done. We're gonna let that dry. That spackling would dry probably about 10 to 15 minutes. So we're gonna sand it. We got a sanding sponge right here. We just typically use these block sanding sponges. I like those, they're flat, especially when we're dealing with trim like this that's flat. And we're gonna sand it and just lightly sand it. Now, if you sand this back like that's right here, if I just sand that right there and I just leave that, I'm done with that. When I spray this right here, you're gonna see where that nail head is if you look in the right lighting. That's where the Bondo comes in place. The Bondo gives you that better finish, that ultra finish, where it's gonna completely hide that nail head. It sands down finer and harder, so you can't see. So we're just gonna go along, sand each one of these with the sanding sponge, and once we're done sanding that, then we're gonna hit it with our Bondo and the same spackle knife. All right, Gabriel, you started the sanding process, and one thing you want to just make sure is just have your sanding spun flat on there when you're sanding, because you just want to have a nice, flat, smooth finish. And you can even feel your bumps, make sure you can feel it. And one trick you can do is add color, like some chalk to your spackling, and that way, once you've sanded it, you can tell what you've sanded, what's still left behind. If you add line chalk to your, like red or blue line chalk to your spackling, stir it when it's dry, and it's gonna dry red or blue, then you know what you've sanded off. Because you don't want any spackling left around this area, you only want to have dust in the holes. So just gonna go along, sand them. Once they're all sanded, we're gonna begin the Bondo process. The Bondo process is, once again, Bondo glazing putty right here. It's gonna give you that ultra fine finish. I like to have a little block of wood to just put the Bondo on, and so I can carry some on a block of wood. So I'll grab a block of wood here, right here. So I'm gonna put some on, block of wood. This stuff dries pretty fast. So give yourself enough to work with right here. And I just put a little dab on there, just like that. And now you've got a block, and then you've got your spackle knife, and you're just gonna begin applying this just like your spackle. So I'm just gonna apply a little bit on there. It's just gonna leave just a little bit behind. This stuff is a little bit harder to sand, so you don't want to have a big glob like that, but you want to have enough over the hole that it's going to fill the hole and you have something to sand. So it's going to look just like this, and just, you'll feel it on the knife, you'll get a feel for it, but it's going to look just like that. So you're just going to have these little red spots everywhere. The Bondo dries pretty fast too. It's going to dry, within about an hour, you're going to be able to sand it. So you want to try to not scrape too hard to scrape it all off, so just, yeah, there you go, a little bit better, just like that. Once again, the line chalk that we use is just that, like for a straight line to snap a line with, it's just that powder chalk. Add that into your spackling, so when your spackling dries and you're sanding it, if your spackling is blue, you should only see spackling left where that nail hole is, and you shouldn't see blue around the whole edge of that nail hole. So that's a good trick that you can use even for filling holes in walls and stuff like that. And it's just a good reminder of the places you put it, so you remember to sand it. There's nothing like spraying all your trim and realizing you just missed a nail head or nail hole because it's white on white, and then you got to go back, re-sand that, and reshoot that trim again. Pretty good. Then once we sand this stuff off, we're going to dust it, vacuum it, and then we're going to begin the sponge caulking process.